You are listening to the Amplifying Leadership Podcast, where we explore what great leadership really looks like through real stories, actionable takeaways, and expert conversations. I am Tara Lehman, founder and CEO of Amplifying Leadership, here to help you lead with intention and influence. Thanks for tuning in to today's guest episode. Today, I am welcoming Casey Ridley, founder and president of The Designery. Welcome to Amplifying Leadership.
Awesome. Thanks, Tara.
So tell us a little bit about your leadership story and how you became a business owner.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for me, I started right out of college and I bought this super small surplus business in a small town of Chattanooga, Tennessee, in the southeast of the United States. And at that point, I knew I wanted to be a business owner. I knew I wanted to take freedom and into my own hands and just be able to really dictate my own story and my own future. And so that's what I did with this surplus business. I bought that and I started figuring out how to continue expanding and growing and developing the business that I'm sure we can get into more detail of. But ultimately that led to an opportunity which led to some massive growth, other business ventures, and other ways to diversify my portfolio. So throughout that, I got really obviously involved in leadership and how can
Mhm.
I be a better leader to my teams, and grew the business from there.
Excellent. That's awesome. And starting so early too with a business. Good for you. I want to talk about purpose today because I know it's a topic you like to talk about. And we want to talk about how we can lead from a position of purpose. I want to start by giving our global audience here an understanding of what do you mean by that? What does it mean to lead with purpose or from a position of purpose?
Yeah, it's a great question. If we're in business, and specifically a for-profit business, I think it's very easy for us to get distracted by the bottom line, revenues,
Mm,
the dollars, right? And we're obviously like that's a piece of it, and we're all in it to, of course, make money. But at the end of the day, money only goes so far, right? There has to be a
mhm.
purpose behind what you're doing, why you're building it, and ultimately a purpose that others can gravitate towards as well. So for me, that is in a couple different areas. One is obviously family. So the family that I'm doing it for, if you will, to give them a better
Mhm.
life, to teach them something, to provide and so on. And then the other side of it is the community aspect. So how can I be more involved in my community, give back, and have a purpose in that way? And I think when you are a leader with a purpose that is easily seen to others, that I think then your employees, your team, your customers, I think people can get behind that. They
Mhm.
can see their purpose within your purpose, and
Mhm.
that creates a goal alignment, and ultimately it creates a good culture. Purpose is obviously very important. It's not a one size fits all. There's not a perfect science to it, but it is definitely something that I think if you can keep top of mind, close to heart when you're making business decisions and ultimately growing a business, I think that ultimately leads you down a certain path that is way more impactful and provides and gives so much more dividends that just money can't really provide.
And I agree with you. I think it's really important that we look beyond just the profits because if you just look at that, sure, you might, have a great boom, but eventually that's just going to disappear. The people side, community side is just as important. Absolutely. So our audience probably knows this. We're going to buy from who we know, like, and trust. So how do we actually build that then? Like, what are some of the strategies you've used to build going from I need to make money, which, most business owners start there, let's be honest, right? To I need to like lead the people. I need to have purpose behind this so that the two come together and balance.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is being able to listen. I think as a leader, and especially when we get very strong-willed in our vision, like a lot of leaders can, especially myself, we can often just march ahead, provide the orders and the dictation of how we need to take the next step or how the business needs to go or what employees need to do. But when you are so one sided, I think you lose that purpose side of it. So I think in order to
Hmm.
really embody a purpose, or something deeper and bigger than yourself, I think you really need to listen. So not just to your customers, but also to your employees. What do your
Yeah.
employees need? What does your team need? What do your partners need? Everyone's a little different, and everyone's a little different of what's important to them. So if you have, one
Hmm.
employee who is very much very focused on family, you probably don't want to have them in a position where they are traveling 5 days out of the week, because now the career is now not lining up with their purpose. On the other hand, if you have someone who their purpose is to see the world and to experience new adventures,
Hmm.
someone who's traveling full time in that role might be perfectly suited for their purpose. And so I think listening to the people around you and understanding what their purpose is allows me as a leader to build a bigger purpose around them that ultimately guides the business in the correct direction.
I love that. And listening and active listening is my favorite communication topic that I love to talk about because it is so important. I mean, we can find out ideas from our employees we didn't even think about before if we actually engage them, right? And building
Mhm.
a company's vision or purpose. So, I want to talk a little bit about some of the benefits around this. If we are actually doing the balance profits, we have to, I'm not just saying that they don't need to be listened to. Absolutely. Profits and numbers, really important. But when it comes to the benefits of leading with purpose, I mean, do you see other benefits, for example, like less turnover or anything else that could speak to our business owners out there?
Yeah, no, I think you hit a spot on. I mean, obviously, yes, I do think the dollars do ultimately increase due to having a purpose.
Hmm.
However, I think definitely more than that, I think there's an abstract value that's almost hard to quantify. For example, you have some major emergency, some work emergency, rather it's with a customer, an employee, or something, and it just so happens to be at a 5 o'clock on a Friday. If you don't have a
Hmm.
purpose around your team and around something that everyone is really bought into, then I think it's very easy for someone to be like, "Oh, it's 5:02, I'm off for the day,"
Right.
and they don't want to handle that situation, that problem. But when everyone is bought in and the purpose is built around them, it's much easier for them to say, "Hey, I love this company. I love what I do. I love what I'm building. So now, therefore, let me handle this problem." And at the end of the day, that of course grows the company in a better direction. And then, I think if you look at employees, you look at turnover, there's always another job. There's always something out there that could provide more money or more something, right? But again, if you have a purpose around what they do and they feel valued and there's that culture is built in, then people are less likely to then just jump ship and do all
Hmm.
of those things. So yes, turnover is a big aspect that I think is improved when you have that purpose around. And of course, like all of that starts with leadership. If leadership
Hmm.
does not have a purpose that can be easily seen, that is more than just the dollars, then to everyone below them or around them, the dollars are all that matters to them too. And that means the second they get another job offer with more money, they're going to be quick to jump on it. And I think
Hmm.
leaders, of course, need to prevent that as much as possible in order to build a resilient workforce and ultimately a great company.
And it's a great culture building thing too. I mean, I remember many, many years ago in my corporate life, I was recruited by somebody, another company. And a lot of people, if my friends are listening, probably don't know this. And they did offer me a lot more money than I was making. And I came back to my organization and talked to the people I needed to talk to because the values of the other organization felt very profit heavy, but
Mhm.
not person heavy, where I worked for was a good balance. And so I ended up staying, less money, but I stayed because the culture was there. So it's a really important point that you're making. I mean, numbers matter, but you do need to take care of those people too. And they need to feel, like you said, really valued. I always say valued, heard, and seen. Those are the things people want in an organization so
Mhm.
that that salary is okay to be a little bit less, right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to flip this question around because a lot of people don't think about we would think about the benefits, but we don't always necessarily look at the cons or the challenges around doing something like this. So if you're thinking about the challenges of leading this way, maybe it's an organization that doesn't is the first challenge, right? What could you see as some of those challenges that could happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question. I think, one of the biggest challenges, which is, very obvious, is when the immediate result financially does not meet with the
Mm,
same decision of leading with purpose may. So for example, a purpose doesn't make payroll, right? And so
right. Yeah.
Friday comes, it's time to write the checks or or send the direct deposits or whatever,
Hmm.
and things are tight. And as a owner and as a business leader, obviously the first thing that kind of goes through your mind is, how do I cut? Right? How do I cut some people? How do I cut back? How do I do
Yeah.
those things so we can then ultimately make payroll and get to a point of better profitability? And there's nothing wrong with, as a business owner, having a little bit of that mentality around protecting the bottom line and having strategic and
Hmm.
sophisticated P&L controls. But at the same time, my mentality is the opposite. It's okay, how do I make more money, right? How do we grow more? How do we increase our revenues? And so when you look at it that way, and then you look at, okay, how can I take the people we have? Are they in the right seats? What is their
Right.
purpose? How do we, work together to ultimately achieve that goal, rather than let me just cut who I feel like I could in this moment to then ultimately make more money, or more profit, I should say. So I think that is obviously one of the biggest obvious challenges, is like sometimes what
Hmm.
may be the best thing purpose wise for the business doesn't equal profits. Same thing, just like giving back to your community. Um, you know, there's a lot of ways to get out there in your industry or your marketplace and do different things to just give back to the community, to again, to your industry or whatever it may be. But sometimes that costs money, or sometimes it means
Hmm.
people not focusing on the business that day because you're going to have your workforce go perform a cleanup in a park, for example, just to give
Hmm.
back, or whatever it may be. We've done, personally, I've done different things with, toys for children at holiday time, and,
Nice.
different ways of giving back like that. But obviously, that's, coming out of the business's pocket or my pocket. And
Hmm.
so, that doesn't always equal the same thinking if I'm only interested in profit. And there's that
Right.
balance there, I think. So I think that's, obvious, just one of the obvious challenges that I think every owner has to really just like, look at that line and just kind of weigh your back and forth options of what's, is the right thing to do, and then versus what's the hard thing to do.
Yeah, and I like that. And I like the idea of giving back to the community as well. But sometimes, you have to look at how does it affect the business. So, for example, a couple of weeks ago, I volunteered in a high school to be like just to share about careers with some of the students there. But it wasn't a full day. I couldn't do full day. So I'm like, I can give
Mm,
2 hours. That's still giving back. That's still allowing you not to steal time or money from your organization, really. It's a small piece of time. So I think there is a balance. There's a really good, healthy balance there. Now, because we're talking a little bit about that, I want to come to actually the culture side of all of this and how we can build our teams and our team culture by leading with purpose. So, how do we go from maybe we don't do this at all and we're very profit centered to starting to build a team that is understanding that we need purpose and that we can lead that way and still build profit and make them happier, if that makes sense? What are your thoughts
yeah,
around that?
yeah. Yeah, no, I think, it's a great question, great topic. I mean, to me, I think that there's two big paths that need to be taken when you're looking at it from that perspective. Number one being that, kind of going back to just listening, like asking questions.
Mm,
So I would look at my team, my org chart, with a culture that is not strong or not, seemingly non-existent. And I would say, are these people in the right positions? Are they, do we need to rearrange? Do we need to restructure? Do we need to do something that provides more value to them by putting them
mhm,
into another position that might make them happier? And I would do that by just asking everyone questions. What do you do on a day to day? Are you happy? What gets you up in the morning? Where's what are your goals? What are your ambitions? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And from there, I would restructure the company kind of accordingly. And then the second thing, which I think is really big, is goal alignment. If you don't have everyone operating on the same goal, then I think ultimately everyone's ambitions are separated. And
Hmm.
then that at the end of the day, it hurts themselves individually and then also hurts the company as a whole. And so the don't be shy about saying this is the revenue target that we want to hit for the year. This is the number of
Hmm.
customers that we want to help this year. This is the number of acquisitions that we want to make this year, whatever it may be, for your company or your industry. I think that we have to create that goal alignment. And then the last thing that I'll say is I would also look at the company and say, do we have a guiding set of values or principles? Is there
Hmm.
something that in every decision that we make, we are basing it off of our values? So for me, like I have 5 values, and it includes things like respect, accountability, excellence, community, and service. And so in every decision I make, I can look back at those and you can see they're not just feel good values, like excellence and
Hmm.
accountability are big parts of it. So if, someone's not pulling their weight or someone is not acting in a excellent manner, like it goes against our
Hmm.
values. But on the other hand, if we're not giving back to the community, if we're not, providing a good service, and if we're not doing those things, it also goes against our values. So I would say to any business, like we need to figure out what the values are that make sense for you, your workforce, your shareholders, whatever it may be, and all encompassing. And let's use that as our North Star. So in every decision that we make, we are looking at those values. Are we representing those values well? And if so, we're making the right decision, even if it doesn't feel like it in the moment.
I love that. And it's something that I also talk to a lot of my clients about is really making sure your vision and your values are what you want to guide by, or your North Star, as you say, and then using that to build the culture and to build the people. Even for
Mhm.
fit, if you're hiring somebody new, asking questions around those types of values and just making sure the fit is right so that you're hiring the correct people to fit the culture you want, right? And so I think I 100% would agree with you on alignment. I think it's really important to have that, and that every goal you set for each individual employee should somehow link up to the ultimate
Mm,
vision, whatever that is. I also love that you brought up, and something that I did corporately was sharing information. I think it's really important. If sales is important, why shouldn't everyone be able to understand that goal and understand how they contribute to it, linking it to values and vision? Because then you're going to have a culture that wants to achieve it. So a lot of people are scared of information, or even like I used to share the high level P&L so they even knew where we were profit wise. How do you think organizations can start doing that without, maybe they don't want to start with the P&L, but how do we get started with being okay with sharing that kind of
mhm.
information?
But it's funny. I was in that exact same boat to where I am a very private person. I don't talk about money or numbers to, just anyone around. My
Mm-hmm.
wife jokes with me all the time about how secretive I am. And she comes from a family that's very open about anything, right? And
Right.
so it was a learning experience for me that I would be, up late at night and when I was a, single location, looking at my numbers. I would create my goals, my budgets moving forward for the year, and then that's it. It would just be kind of
Mm-hmm.
mine to keep and mine to operate off of. And as I continued growing and I continued with that same mindset, I started seeing a fraction between what I wanted to achieve versus what everyone
Mm-hmm.
else thought they were going to achieve or thought they maybe should achieve. And so I ultimately started sharing and I started saying, this is the goal that I want to achieve. Here's the logic behind it, and I want my team to get bought into that same goal and vision. And if they get bought into that same goal and vision, then every single day they wake up, they're operating on that
Mm-hmm.
path to ultimately achieve it. Whereas if you don't have that, you're on some path and you don't have the yellow brick road, to kind of lead you where
Yeah.
you need to go. And so I think if there's anyone else out there that's like, like I was, that's just very private, I agree. Maybe don't start with this is the exact profit and this is the exact revenue that
Hmm.
I want us to hit this year, this quarter, whatever. Start something smaller than that. So something more tangible. Rather it's, individual sales goals for your team, if that is applicable to you. Maybe it's a number of customers that you work with. Maybe it's a number of contracts that
Yeah.
you have signed. Maybe it's a certain, whatever it may be that ultimately ties into the same numbers, and so you kind of do that math in regards to, okay, if I know I want to hit $1 million this year, then I know that that is this many customers, this many per month, this many per week, this many per person, or whatever. And everyone
Hmm.
is now aligned on those goals. And to them, maybe it's not quite as open and obvious in regards to the exact dollars that you're trying to achieve, but
Hmm.
still everyone is focused on a goal. And I think that's a great way to start. I think ultimately you'll probably get to the point where you get more and more open because you'll see it work, but at the same time, maybe that's a good baby step for you.
Love that. Love that. Simple and aligns. It aligns to the ultimate vision of maybe gaining sales or
Mhm.
whatever your profit margin is. They just don't know what that is, but their goal is aligning to that. So you're really still focused on that vision, goals, alignment that you were talking about. So still ultimately doing the same thing. And eventually, when you're comfortable, share a little bit more. Yeah, I love that. Let me ask you this. If I'm a brand new leader and I've been hired by a company, and they don't do things like this. I'm going to call it, I'm a manager, I'm a middle manager. How can I work with my team if this is not something that they're willing to do, but work with my team to start to create this?
Yeah. So, I mean, I truly believe that middle management is probably the most difficult
Mm,
position for anyone to be in,
agreed.
right? Because you are leading people, but you're also answering to someone else. And so you don't have the full
Hmm.
say in your leadership of what you're doing. And so it's a very difficult line. And I have a ton of respect for anyone who is kind of in that middle management role, and
Hmm.
especially when they excel and do well at it. So, with that being said, I mean, I think, look at the things that you can control. I think life as a whole and as humankind, we are very easy to get distraught or brought down by just things that aren't within our power, things that aren't within our control. And as a someone who maybe is in middle management, there's certain things you can't do. So if you don't have the
Hmm.
budget to go spend money on toys for kids and your
Right.
people to be bought into that, that's okay. Look at it a different way and figure out how you can affect the things that you can control. So maybe it's again just the listening and the asking questions and talking to them, creating a little bit more of a bond of like, hey, I'm still obviously the leader and the manager, and like we're going to achieve the company's goals and we're going to work very hard, but at the same time, I'm also there to support you. How can I help you? Are you overwhelmed? Are you at capacity? Let me jump in and take a little bit off your plate. Let me help you restructure things. All of those things are typically within the control at that point of the manager. And it is leading with a different mindset versus just
Hmm.
being focused on, say, the task and more being focused on the people who are completing the task, which ultimately leads to the same result, or better than result. So I would say that's kind of where I would look at it. Obviously, every company is different, and the structure and the expectations put on people are different. Um, and what's important to everyone is different too. Like maybe it is truly
Hmm.
just about people making more money, and then it's like, okay, well, if that's kind of what your purpose is, then maybe I look at it a different way. Maybe there's a commission structure I can put in place. Maybe there is some sort of profit sharing that I can put in place. Maybe there is a bonus structure that I can put in place, or I could go advocate to my higher ups to achieve those different structures, which ultimately provides the right kind of incentive to your team to
Hmm.
ultimately hit the goals that the company wants or that they want. So, all of those things I would just take into account and then build what makes the most sense for that situation.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that, because there are a lot of people who are in that spot. And I think it's important to say there still are strategies out there to help you build what you're hoping to build, even if top management isn't quite there yet. So appreciate that. So, to sum up our call today, is there anything that maybe you want to leave them as a final thought, our listeners today?
Yeah. Final thought and final tip, really is that, everything that you want in life is on the other side of fear. And I truly mean that. I truly live by that. I am very much a risk taker in pretty much all aspects. But I think it's not just in business ownership, like it's in your personal lives, it's in your careers, it's in your relationships, whatever it is that you think that you may want. Typically, you have to overcome some fear to get there. And so the
Mhm.
biggest thing is just get through it, right? Jump over that fence and overcome that fear. And everything that you are wanting to achieve in life is on the other side of that. And
Mhm.
so if anyone is feeling down or scared or worried, you're probably, especially if you're feeling scared or worried, you're probably in a great spot and you just got to keep pushing.
Yeah, you always got to get over the hump, right? Feel the
Mhm.
fear and do it anyway. It's a book out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much for everything today. If our audience did want to learn more about your business or how to just connect with you, is there a way that they can do that online?
Yeah, absolutely. My name's Casey, Casey, Ridley, Ridley, on pretty much every social media platform, or check out one of my company's websites at thedesignery.com. And you can also go to the About page and learn about me and then the company as a whole and everything that we're doing. So I would love it for people to connect with me, LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever, and we can continue the conversation.
Excellent. Thank you so much for the conversation today. Greatly appreciated.
Thanks, Tara.
A big thank you, of course, to you, our listeners today. We hoped you gained some valuable insights or practical takeaways from today's conversation with Casey. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving us a great rating or review. It is one of the best ways to support the podcast and help us and our guests like Casey reach even more leaders with these important stories, tips, and advice. If you are looking to clarify leadership priorities, build strong teams, or empower those around you, I am here to help. Explore our solutions, offers, resources at amplifyingleadership.ca because leadership is better when we do it together. Until next time, remember, leadership matters.